My name's Debbie Feeback, and I'm the Chief Development Officer for the CDBG program. My team consists of environmental review and project development. Okay, so today's going to be about writing the narrative, just an overview of some suggestions. Today we'll talk about that. Yesterday we talked about that whole planning process. The pyramid where it starts with Congress creating the program, it being codified, and HUD distributing funds directly to the cities, counties, and states. So just like it's essential for Missouri to go through that planning process to get the HUD funds, it is essential for the units of local government and your regional planning commissions to go through that planning process to create a successful application so you can get the funds. So just with that, it's also essential to be prepared and plan for your narrative. Planning for your narrative helps invoke a compelling story. That narrative tells most of the story your project need, and there are strategies that can be taken to write that compelling narrative, which can result in a successfully funded application. But first, let me give a little bit of a disclaimer. So what I'm about to share does not guarantee an approved application. There are many facets to getting approved on your application and having it score high. Number one, the eligibility, and then, of course, the application process scoring. This is just guidance on things that I have learned throughout the years, training, and my personal experience. And a big portion of it too is learning from you all in this position and helping some of you all through your applications that maybe got denied and in preparation of the next cycle. So it's important to start considering ahead of time some of the strategies, collaborating and asking yourself key questions. So those might be, what is the problem? Who or what is impacted? What's the solution? Sorry. We can go through it without it if we need to. Why is this a priority, and what is the outcome? So years ago when I started writing grants, learning some of the various strategies, getting training, I would start asking myself these questions, and it took me back to English class. The 5 W's, the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. So I realized how essential those are in writing a narrative. So those questions and answers don't necessarily fall in that order. Place them how you feel is right to tell that story, because the story is your problem, what you're looking to get funded. We want to know the impact, the solution, what is the outcome, and are there priorities? So let's break this down. I may just not be able to use this unless you can switch it because it just wants to move on its own.
Yeah, we'll do it.
So this goes back to the who, what's, whys. So what is the problem? Be specific. What is happening? Tell the story. And who did this affect? When did it start? And be sure to use the quantifiable data. So example, 2,300 linear feet of roadway have been destroyed due to multiple floodings following with daily heavy traffic. Some of the narratives that I see are the basics of our roads are deteriorating. We have cracks in our roads. So think about exactly what the problem is and provide that detail. So who's impacted? Don't forget who is it affecting or what is it affecting. So when thinking through this, also think about tying in your national objective. So 352 cars travel across this area daily. The crosswalk has completely disappeared. Students cross this street to walk from a residential area to school. Like, these are just things I was trying to think of to throw out here. 63 residents, 89% of whom are LMI. Or maybe it's an urgent need. Damaged vehicles, there's no water. So just remember to try to tie in that LMI objective. Or I'm sorry, the national objective. So what is the proposed solution? Describe the activity. What will be done to the 2,300 linear feet of roadway? It will be replaced by 3 inches of asphalt to seal the extensive cracks and broken pieces of street. Or 5 feet of water line will be replaced with upgraded pipe in size and quality. So remember then also, what is the outcome? Describe the results. Again, think about tying that national objective. Replacing the pipe that will allow for the 93 residents, 89 of whom are LMI, who have had no water for over 2 weeks, would now have safe, clean water with suitable flow. Repairing the roadway will allow for the 36 elderly residents at the nearby nursing home to exercise safely. So then think about, what is the problem? And again, these are not all necessarily in a certain order. You've got to consider what your problem is and merge your story to where these would apply. The problem, describe where the situation is, the location. So this is located 100 feet from an assisted living community. This is the main crosswalk students utilize. South side of town, where 500 cars travel daily, risking damage to their vehicles due to the extensive breakdown of streets. And then remember, why is this a priority? Is this urgent? What is the impact? So describe the challenges and events that lead to it. Is this a system failure? Is it affecting the health of your community? And again, there's no certain order, and these questions may have answers that cross throughout the application. And it's okay to repeat that. Just remember to be concise. So super important to plan it and think about the who, the what, the why, the where, and when. But let's not forget the H. We had the how. How did it happen? How is this affecting the community? How will the solution impact the community? So ask yourself these questions to get the data going. Now, there may be opportunity throughout, as mentioned, but just remember to be concise and clear. Many applications came in, and we didn't have necessarily bad applications coming in, and they're all great projects. But remember, especially on this competitive cycle, you've got a lot of competition. I mentioned yesterday, we had 91 applications just for this one cycle. On the super cycle that we did, we had 115 applications. And so in comparison, there was a lot of competition this time. And so it's important to pay attention and be thorough to make sure that we're understanding your project. So for instance, I saw a few applications where it said the streets are cracked and have potholes. And this is the what, but tell me more, be more descriptive. Most communities do have the cracked roads and potholes. Talk about the 32 feet of the 40-foot roadway has large cracks in them. They've begun separating large enough that a foot could fall within the cracks. The potholes have consumed 85% of the streets due to multiple storms and heavy traffic. So tell me about your town. Tell me about your cracks. And using impactful words can significantly enhance the persuasiveness. So some examples, some terms that highlight suggesting lasting positive change is transformative, life-changing, empowering, sustainable, measurable, community-driven. Some examples conveying urgency or the importance would be urgent, immediate, essential, critical. Some words that you could use to show the partnership and collaboration would be utilizing those words: collaboration, partnership, collective. And my favorite is united. But don't forget the strong action verbs. Some examples could be administered, assessed, authorized, implemented, and then those words that help influence positive outcomes: inspire, benefit, celebrate, support, and there are many more words out there that could be used. Those are just some examples. So use these strategically and make sure that they reflect your actual project. For instance, the destruction caused the destruction that was caused by the continual storms and regular heavy traffic has made it impossible to have safe walkway for the students to cross the road to get to school, which is adjacent to, or it is essential to get immediate assistance. Now, some additional tips and things to remember would be use real numbers. Again, use descriptive words. Tell your story, but to the point. Explain who the beneficiaries are, who's affected, who's going to win from this outcome. Provide the evidence of need. Think about, did you use those 5 W's and the H? Did you tie your national objective within that narrative? And sometimes these may not be appropriate, but as long as you're planning and asking yourself these questions, that should help you get the narrative solid to help become a successful application. So then some of the pitfalls is the description. Like, again, remember those 5 W's and the H. So the funds will replace 22 streets. Some of the applications I saw either wouldn't provide the outcome, or these funds will help repair our deteriorating streets, which is true, but remember, you've got all those other competitive applications coming in that might have a more compelling story that provides us that impact. So replacing the 70-year-old water line that serves 92 residents at 72% LMI that frequently leaks and results in regular boil orders. Repairing the roads will improve infrastructure versus the project will replace 2,100 feet of corroded sewer main that causes raw sewage backup, which affects 72 LMI households. See the difference in the description. Both of them are accurate, but there's detail. Not telling me about the community. That is another pitfall. Tell us about your community. Provide your specific problem. Why is your problem different? Why should we be funding yours as opposed to another? Avoid the vague verbiage. The roads are bad. The roads are probably bad. We have a lot of those throughout Missouri, but I want to know, why are they bad? What has happened? How is the community being affected? Another issue that I saw was the history and data. So if it's essential to provide us that history, think about the proper place to put it in the narrative. A lot of our applications, or several of them, did provide some great history. and it really told us about the town or the project, but the points that we needed got lost in all of that. And so provide the details, use the impactful words. If giving that history is necessary, strategically find a place. Maybe that would be at the end, but think about if it's necessary. I know that it's important to communities to have the story told, but is that story necessary in this narrative to have that impactful story coming to us? So think about, and maybe it goes at the end, but the detail that needs to be understood can sometimes get lost in all of that supportive data and the history. So statements that are made but not provided with backup data. The roads are bad. Back that up. Utilize numbers, utilize the description. There were applications that had some great statements, but there was no backup. And so it was hard for us to understand what exactly we were supposed to be funding. So when you're writing these narratives, again, a lot of times the 5 W's and the how are not all covered. There were multiple applications that really came across and told us the where or maybe the what, but not the how or the why. Like, how is this impacting our community? The poor structure is going to make it hard for your story to come across. So this is another pitfall. Make sure that it blends together. A couple of the ones, especially with some like history, then it would go into some great narrative and detail, but then it would go back into some history, and then what it needed to tie to came to the bottom. So make sure that it all ties together. Long paragraphs. If you can separate out your message, put it into sentences. There were many that could have been like 4 and 5 sentences to still be effective, but it would be one long sentence. And so that makes it hard for the scorers to understand. So as I mentioned, the 5 W's, or maybe you have a different method. These are just some suggestions. You don't necessarily have to put it in any order. Just ask yourself those questions. Another pitfall is repeating the application question instead of telling the story. So the broken water pipes have caused an impact on the residents. But the question was, what is the impact of the problem? So make sure to read the question and then answer with those 5 W's and H in mind. The last one that I'll mention, and there are many more, these are just some main examples, is fail to show readiness. Some of the narratives did not come through with evidence that the project was ready, lacking some of the detail. It sometimes will make us question if there has been that collaboration and if you truly know what it is that needs to be repaired and what your problem is. And so it's important to show that there is a clear path that can be seen if funding was to be implemented. At that point, if not, it could appear that the project is risky. So just to summarize some of this, not necessarily in any order, follow your instructions. Read your questions, be prepared and read the guidelines first. Tell your story, know your audience, know the priorities of the application, target what you know to align with this cycle. Structure it effectively. Immediately capture the attention. Start off on that narrative with maybe the what. Ask yourself, what is most impactful about our story? And start it off that way to grab the attention right away. Clearly state the problem. Frame the need. What is wrong? Who are the beneficiaries being served? How is the project making a difference? Provide detail and be concise. If you want to provide history, if that is something important, you might look to see if it would fit at the end to make sure that we receive the message in the beginning so it doesn't get lost. Maybe the history is part of it, just some suggestions as you question where that could strategically be placed. Does the need have backup data? Be sure to outline clear objectives. The overall story or the overall narrative needs to tell your story. So at the very end, think about call it to action. Conclude it, reiterate the significance of the project and the impact that it will have. So remember, many roads have alligator cracks. Many buildings are deteriorating. Tell your story. Make it flow, easy to read, and this means planning, being prepared. So finally, I'm going to leave you with a couple of quotes, and those are on like one of the last screens. Albert Einstein says, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So in this case, know your audience. Tell me about your problem. I might not know the community. Explain it clearly and simply. Steve Jobs says the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. Empower yourself to tell your story. Sue Monk Kidd, who is an American author, says in the end, we are our stories. Tell me about that. And granted, a lot of you, and probably most of you, are administrators, but work through this with your cities as you're telling their story. This is your chance to tell your community's story and how they are affected. And finally, the difference between the right word and almost the right word is the difference between lightning and lightning bug. This was said by Mark Twain. So using the exact right word can make your writing powerful, vivid, and convincing. Think it through, prepare. Using a word that is close, but not quite right, can miss telling the point. So the lightning. Lightning is bold, effective, and dramatic. A lightning bug is small, gentle, and faint by comparison. Words evoke energy and provide impact.